Good evening, namaste, and greetings wherever you are right now as we go into this episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Body, something very specific that will hopefully benefit you. So firstly, I want to take a moment to welcome you all in. It's nice that we have good company on a Sunday evening here at the moment as you're all coming in. Great to have all of you. I hope that you're all having a pleasant Sunday, that you've had a good experience overall. And despite the challenges with now going back into the workplace for many of us, that you're finding a way through to navigate the uncertainty. But one of the things that happens is, of course, that we do get very stressed out at the moment. And that stress manifests in many, many different ways. And so what we want to look at in this situation is how we can better navigate that stress, how we can better handle it and build our emotional resilience muscle. Resilience is a very important facet for all of us. And in Gujarati, they call it Sahan Shakti. And so we want to look at some of these tactics here. I'll give it a moment for everybody to join in. I'm going to allow for Indian timing or Luana timing as everybody comes in. So thank you all for your patience. Thanks for coming in and joining us here. We'll take a moment for people to join in and then we'll get underway. While we're doing that, let me invite you to just share a note as to where you're from. We know that the Lohana Mahajans spread worldwide. So do let us know where you're tuning in from today. Where have you tuned in from? I know last time that I had the pleasure of being accompanied by so many people from different parts of the world. It's a real pleasure to have so many people from around the world joining us. So do let us know where you're tuning in from at this moment for this episode. It'd be great to know where you're coming in from. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to get underway. We're going to make a start, and we will, if you haven't already, grab a notepad or a pen or a phone and be ready to make a couple of small notes during this, because I'm going to share a couple of slides on a presentation to help you to bring across some of the important ideas that will help you in this subject here today. So without further ado, let's get underway. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Prash Kotecha, actually Prashant Kotecha to be precise and full, but my nickname is Prash. And I am the founder of Urban Spirituality and Stress to Success and Mantra Therapy. So I've had the pleasure of being a member of the Luana community in London for many years. And I've been privileged enough to serve alongside some very, very noble and very, very giving individuals and team members within the Luana community in London. And obviously there are many Luanas all around the world who are tuned in here. And I want to just take a moment to acknowledge all of you for being examples of leadership, wisdom, righteousness, and good living that you are for the people around you. And it's such an important thing right now. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Shri Krishna says, Yad yadacharati shrestas, meaning that whatever actions or activities somebody in a important position of authority performs, and that could be the head of a household as much as it could be the director of a large organization, either or, just the head of any kind of unit, whatever action such a person performs, others follow in their footsteps. So it is appropriate that we are all exemplars in this situation. We are all here to learn from one another and give and be examples for the people around us. I think it's so important. And so that leads us to this session here. Here's a little bit about where I've been on my journey with stress and resilience. I've been no stranger to stress along my life. I've suffered from a number of illnesses, including chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue, two particular things that were very, very harmful and debilitating for many, many months, and various other types of stress markers, high cholesterol, blood pressure, and so forth in years gone by. And one of the best lessons I learned is how to build my resilience muscle, how to reduce that stress and increase our resilience in different ways, using both ancient techniques and contemporary practical techniques in modern living. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at some techniques that blend some of the ancient wisdom and contemporary practical wisdom for busy individuals like most of us who need something that's quick, time specific, and applicable for all of us in our busy lives. That's what we'll be looking today. I've had the pleasure of working with people in the city, in different organizations, and in communities and spiritual organizations. So I know that these different techniques actually do work. And so these are all proven techniques. That having said, I want to invite you to bring some focus to this session by having a look at what we're going to cover. We're going to cover a couple of things. One, we're going to look at gaining a better understanding of what stress is, symptoms, and then strategies for managing it. We'll also look at some of the tools that help with developing resilience. And then we'll also look at a couple of practical hacks, quick hacks, tactics that can be done to reduce stress and build resilience in a short time frame that can be able to be brought about quick results very quickly. So that having said, let's start with definitions. But before we go to definitions, I want you to just think about this. What's your motivation for attending and tuning into this session here today? What is it that you are dealing with right now? What stressful situation do you have right now? Or you know somebody who's got right now in your household or in your work or in your community that's inspired you to join this session? And how confident are you at present about managing stress and building resilience? What level of capability do you have? Because we all have some, but we may not recognize it. So just give thought to that. And then what would you like to have by the end of this session? I'm going to give you a moment just to reflect on what you think that could be. Now, as we do that, and as you look at what this could be, let's look at some definitions here. So I like this definition here of stress. Let me just hop this onto slideshow view so you'll get a clearer view. Right, let's look at some definitions here. So I like this definition. Stress is not so much about the situation, but rather our response to the situation. You see, stress is about our response to, it's the response we have from a physiological and psychological perspective to a situation. So we may have a traumatic situation or incident or scenario that arises. Our physiological and psychological response to that situation determines how we're dealing with it and how stress shows up for us. Physiological meaning biological in terms of our physical symptoms, shallow breathing, deep breathing, hot temperatures, muscles tightening, many other symptoms of stress, or psychological, the emotions that we have, the type of thinking that we go into. All of these are symptoms of the kind of stress that we may be experiencing at that time. And what I want to share with you just a moment is just a glimpse of how our brain is wired up. The architecture of our brain is such that when a difficult traumatic situation arises, we typically, as humans, respond in one of three different ways. And in fact, this is true for an animal species as well. All living creatures generally respond in one of these three ways. But certainly in humans, we're either going to be frightened, or we're going to flight, or we're going to fight. So take the example that you come across a lion. For those of you who are coming from East Africa like myself, you'll be familiar with lions back in the day. So imagine you've come face to face with a lion and you're paralyzed because you've just seen this lion. So now you're frightened. You know, the rabbit in the headlight situation. So you see a lion coming towards you and you freeze. So now you're in this fright. Fright has taken over you and you can't do anything. Your body's paralyzed. You don't know what to do and you're frozen. Alternatively, there is a response of flight. You may run away from the situation. You may flee. You see a lion coming and you run. You hightail it. So have you had that experience where stress has come up? Maybe it's a difficult conversation with a work colleague. Maybe it's an argument in the home, in your household. Maybe it's your employee giving you a difficult time, but you decide that this is too much. I'm just going to run, or I'm going to leave this company. I'm going to go away. I'm going to move away from the situation. That's our flight. And lastly, there's our fight response, where sometimes we choose that we're not going to run away. We're going to dig our heels in and we're going to actually take this battle on. And that, if you recall, in the ancient wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjun did that. Arjun was initially so stressed by the thought, he was so overwhelmed by the thought that he may have to kill his own family members who were on the opposing side of the armies in order to try to win this war, that he felt he couldn't do it. He was paralyzed, and he wanted to he was in fright, and then he wanted to flight. He wanted to run away. But no, the advice his counselor gave him, Krishna gave him, was no, you need to fight this situation. And he used techniques to reorientate his mindset to a position where he was ready to stand the ground and fight. And so therefore, consider what response you're exhibiting and what you have exhibited in the past when it comes to stress. Are you fright, flight, or fight? Okay, moving on. Resilience. A great definition of resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or from tough situations. So it's a sort of toughness, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. So it's a form of toughness. Resilience is also an reflection of the processes, the behaviors and habits that we have accumulated in protecting ourselves from potential negative effects of stresses. So it's our bundle of tools and abilities that prevent us from going down a stressful route. So now we've got those definitions. Let's take a look at some of the common responses that we have to stress. And I wonder if you can recognize and relate to some of these. Now I've put them into 4 areas here. Bodily responses. Have you had a situation, think about this for a second, a situation you've had recently or in past times where you've shown physical symptoms of stress, headaches, tight muscles, fatigue, tiredness, skin irritations, infections because your immune system has been weakened, shallow or heavy breathing. These are all symptomatic signs of stress in your body. Then look at the mind. Worrying, constant worrying maybe. How about indecision, when you feel that you're unable to make a clear decision? Negative thinking, where our inner critic starts to talk and tell us that, no, we can't do this. Everything's going to be really bad. And then you start going into a negative spiral because the stressful situation you're faced with, whether it's a repossession of your house, whether it's a business deal that's gone wrong and now you're left with whether your business will survive or not, something at work, something on the home front, the death of a family member, you're left with all this negativity. I know I was when I lost my mother. I initially felt that my life was over, and I felt hugely stressed. I thought, how are we going to cope? My mom was the bedrock of my family. How will my father and my brother and myself survive without my mom? You know, she was a breadwinner as well as my dad. She was the queen of the house. She handled everything. Suddenly we had to deal with everything. And as a 13-year-old kid, I couldn't compute how we're going to get beyond this. So I started getting into negative thinking. I thought my life is over. There'll never be a mom again in my life. I'll never find somebody like that. There's no female energy in the house. I started getting foggy thinking. I couldn't think clearly at my school. I started making hasty decisions. So maybe some of these things are things that you can relate to with the mind. Then we've got the third area. Stress also manifests in our behavior. Now, it could be substance abuse. And some of you may know this, and I know this is a taboo topic in many communities, but maybe there's excess consumption of alcohol. Maybe you know somebody who's turning to alcohol or smoking or some other means of numbing the pain to try to avoid feeling that stress. Okay? So it could be substance abuse. It could be a loss of appetite or an increase in appetite. How many of you comfort eat? How many people go reach for the chocolate or unhealthy snacks when you're stressed? I know some people do. I was one of those. How many are accident prone? You become clumsy and you start making mistakes at work or at home. Restlessness. You can't seem to be real present in a situation. Loneliness. Many of us have family members. Who relates to this? Many of us have family members. We've got people all around us and yet we feel all alone. When we're stressed, we feel we can't express our situation to somebody else. Have you ever had that experience? And insomnia, poor ability to sleep. Now let's look at our emotional responses. Loss of confidence. Many people right now, especially some of my clients are from the medical field, and they are one of the most frequent things they report to me in their coaching with them is how they feel like a loss of confidence and a loss of control, as if everything's been pulled out of their hands. They've just lost the ability to be as competent as they previously were. And so part of the coaching with them involves rebuilding their confidence, showing them what they have that they're already capable of. And sometimes it needs another person to help to show them and remind them that they have these capabilities, but they need to be rediscovered and brought back to the surface. Apprehension, indifference, depression is another thing. Many of us, especially again in our minority communities, we don't deal with depression very well. We're always told, well, it's just something in the mind, it'll get better. And so depression is still very taboo. And yet depression is a very real thing, and not enough people are still talking about it. And yet it exists. But the more we start to express ourselves, depression is not a sin. It is something that many of the world's population experience. Some of our greatest leaders have experienced it. Chandra Bose, Winston Churchill, Da Vinci, many people throughout history have suffered depression, and yet they've led countries. Depression is something that is there, and it could be temporary, but we just have to be able to talk about it, especially with relation to stress, especially with males. What we find is that the male archetype is that you can't share this stress that you're going through. You can't share that thing with your family members. You feel that it's not right to share with your partner or your children. And so you keep it inside, and that depression builds up and it develops into irritability, and the way you respond with your family members starts to deteriorate, and you start to get edgy and snappy, and you start to diminish the quality of the relationships that you have with your other family members or your friends, or you become isolated and you become a bit of a recluse. So all these are signs that stress is knocking on your door. And why I wanted to present this slide is so you can start to see where stress may be showing up and you didn't realize that it's stress. Okay. So here's a reflective questioning for you. What's causing you stress at the moment? Is it a person? Could it be somebody in your home? Could it be a loved one living outside? Perhaps it's a romantic partner, or maybe it's a business partner or a colleague at work. Or could it be a situation, something that's going on right now that's causing you stress? The current situation, the COVID crisis, the uncertainty of whether we'll be able to get back and find another role. It could be that you've been furloughed and you don't know what waits for you when you go back to the workplace. Or it could be stress from past situations where you've regretted what you've done and you don't know what's going to happen as a result. The past is catching up with you perhaps. Or your future, you're anxious about what your future is. So start to think about what's causing you stress. What are your symptoms? We've just gone through some of the symptoms here on the previous slide. What are these symptoms? What's showing up for you emotionally, behaviorally, physically in your body? What's showing up for you here? And what strategies have you used so far that have actually helped you? Perhaps without realizing you've overcome different kinds of stressful situations. We all have had the capacity and capability to overcome stressful situations in the past. We just sometimes forget that we have that capability. So the question is, what have you overcome in the past where you were stressed? What tools did you use? So I want you to think about that for a moment. Just take a moment to reflect on that. And I'm going to give you a moment just to reflect, maybe make some notes. And if you want, feel free to leave some comments in the feed here, and we'll have a look on Facebook and see what people are coming back with. Feel free to leave some of these comments here. Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to take a moment to address those of our non-English speaking attendees here at the moment as well, those people who've tuned in. So, Bayu Tatabenu, Vadilo Murabio, Mara Khub Jai Shri Krishna, and Mara Pranam. Our topic, stress, મગજનું ટેન્શન બહુ જ ભયંકર ચીજ છે, બહુ જ ગંભીર ચીજ છે. કારણ કે આપણે સરખી રીતે આપણે બોલી ના શકીએ અથવા આપણે બતાડી ના શકીએ કે આપણી પાસે આ હાલત છે, આપણા મગજમાં જ રાખી રહીએ અને આપણા હૃદયમાં રાખી મૂકીએ તો આપણે સરખી રીતે એમનો ઉપાય ના કાઢી શકીએ. એટલે એમનો ઉપાય શોધવા માટે આપણને હંમેશા પહેલા આપણને રેકગ્નાઇઝ કરવું પડે. આપણના મગજમાં ખ્યાલ આવવી જોઈએ કે આપણને કયા સિમ્પટમ્સ આવે છે, આપણને કઈ રીતે સ્ટ્રેસ આપણા લાઈફમાં આવ્યું છે, આપણા શરીરમાં આવ્યું છે, આપણા મગજમાં, આપણા ઇમોશનમાં, આપણા વિચારમાં, આપણી મનોવૃત્તિમાં. એટલે આપણે એ જાણીને ખ્યાલ જોઈને આપણે જેમ ઓડિટ કરીએ કે આપણે રાશન લેવાનું છે, તો આપણે શોપિંગ કરવા જતા પહેલા આપણે આપણો કબજ જોઈએ કે આપણને શોપિંગ લિસ્ટ શું છે. તો એવી જ રીતના આપણને સ્ટ્રેસ માટે આપણને આપણું પોતાનું શોપિંગ લિસ્ટનું ઓડિટ કરવું પડે. આપણે લિસ્ટ ઓડિટ કરવી પડે કે આપણને શું લેવાનું છે, આજે આપણી લિસ્ટમાં શું છે. એટલે એવી જ રીતના આપણને કોઈ દિવસ ટેન્શન ને સ્ટ્રેસ લાગે તો આપણને શોપિંગ લિસ્ટ બનાવે કે આપણે કઈ રીતે સ્ટ્રેસ લાગે છે, આપણા શરીરમાં લાગે છે, આપણા મગજમાં, આપણા વિચારમાં, આપણા ઇમોશનમાં, આપણા આચારમાં. અને આપણે રાઇટ ડાઉન કરી શકીએ ને, તો એમાંથી જ આપણું રાઇટ ડાઉન કરીને જ આપણને આસ્તે આસ્તેથી ખ્યાલ આવવા માંડે અને એમાંથી હિંમત આપણી ઊભી શકે. So there you go. I just wanted to say that in Gujarati. My Gujarati is not perfect, but I hope that you caught some of the gist of what I just said there. Let's come back to the presentation in English and let's look at what came up for you. See if there's any feedback here. We've got some good comments coming in. I'm just looking to see if there's any comments or any particular points being raised. Looks like everybody's okay. So let's just carry straight on, diving back in. Now let's look at some ways to build resilience. And before we do that, I want to just describe to you that resilience, I want you to think of resilience as a cup or a battery, even better. Imagine a mobile phone battery. The more you use it without charging it, the more worn out it becomes. And before you know it, you're down to 5%, right? Low battery. And so our resilience is like a mobile phone battery. It is finite. It has a limited capacity. And what happens is each time we get stressed out during the day, due to our work, due to our home, due to some family situation, each time we get stressed out, our resilience starts to wear down because we're using our resilience up as our stress increases. And so the aim should be to fill or top up that resilience, recharge our resilience battery, and ultimately to increase the capacity of the battery. So you can use the example of a cup. It's to fill our resilience cup and to then increase the size of that cup. And there are powerful ways to do that. One of the key ways I want to introduce you here to is looking at our circle of influence. I call this, and those of you who are familiar with business psychology, you'll know Stephen Covey. The circles of control and influence is a tool to describe in your life what it is that you can control, what it is that you can't control but you have an influence over, and then what it is that you can neither control nor influence, and therefore it's outside of your circle of concern. So our circle of control in the middle is the things that we can control: what we wear, when we brush our teeth, how we get to work to a degree pre-COVID, what we choose to eat largely, where we choose to walk, how we choose to exercise, where we choose to work usually is within our control. What we choose to read, what we choose to watch, all of these things are within our control. Then there's our circles of influence. Now, this could be our children. We may not be able to control our children, but we're able to influence them in a positive way, hopefully. We're able to influence our colleagues and staff at work. We can't control them, but we're able to influence them positively. We may have situations that we can also influence, situations and circumstances that we can influence. Our credit rating, for example, we can positively influence our credit rating by the things that we do. So those things fall in our circle of influence. We may not be able to control them per se, but we can influence how they are or what they are or how they show up. And then we have the things that are outside. This current situation is a perfect example of that. We're in this climate where we're forced. Previously, we could go to work and hang out with who we want. Now we can't hang out with who we want. We can't have gatherings. We can't commute the way we used to. We can't even shop the way we used to. All of these that are beyond our circle of control or influence start to cause us more and more stress because they're uncertainty. They lead to uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen after this climate. We don't know whether we'll have a job or not. We don't know the health of our certain family members. Am I making sense? All of these things contribute to our stress levels because we don't know. And so the key to building resilience is to focus on what we can control, what we are able to influence. That's where our focus needs to be. We need to move our focus from out here in this circle to closer in to our circle of control and our circle of influence. And that, my friends, is actually the message that comes from the Bhagavad Gita, the message that comes from the Vedas, from the ancient scriptures, whichever race, religion, or culture you are. The ancient wisdom of the ancient scriptures teaches us to know thyself, to learn to trust thyself, to count on thyself. That is to say, to learn to become swatantra, become independent, and know one's swadharma, one's own personal constitutional qualities and abilities and likes and dislikes, so that you can better align how you show up in the world with who you truly are. And that's why it all begins with ourselves. We have to go back and look at that circle of control. And that's what the ancients are teaching us. And that's what I'm advising and encouraging you to do. Look at what you can control, because the more you start turning your attention away from the outside, COVID this, when will it end? What if I catch the virus in the second wave? What about my son or daughter? What if they catch it too? Well, what can I do right now? Well, I can build my immune system by doing exercise, taking the right kind of nutritional supplements, adding in better sleep patterns. And we'll look at these things in a little bit. I can control what I watch. I can control what I consume and eat so I don't become overweight. I can control how I move my body and exercise within a degree. You may not be able to go to the gym, but you can still walk. So we have control, absolute control, over most of these factors, which really do have the big influence anyway. Because remember, even if you're a business person and you're tuned into this and you're watching this, the heart of every successful business or career is you. You are the source of your business. You are the source of your career. We are the people who make this happen. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that this is hitting home for you. And I don't mean to be harsh or hard, but I want to point out that we have more control than we realize that we do. Swami Vivekananda, a great saint from India, says this very well, that whenever bad things happen, there is the part that we cannot control, that is beyond our reach, and there is the part that we've played in that situation or scenario. And to the degree that we've played our part, we can also play our part to mend that scenario, to heal that scenario, to correct that situation, to make it better. And that's what we're talking about here. So what I want to invite you to do is start to meditate on what it is that you can start controlling more, because by doing that, controlling and influencing more, by doing that more, you're going to be able to start to reduce the stress symptoms, because you'll be able to start bringing it in. Health is a perfect example. If you're getting stressed out, you may not be doing enough physical activity. You may not be taking enough breaks from your work. You may be caught up in the same type of thinking and worrying, and you need to be shaken up. You need to be taken out of that and do something different. All of these are within your control, within our control, and within our circle of influence. Even the people around us, those who care for us, we can ask them to hold us accountable. So we can ask them to help us in this journey. Hey, can you please keep one eye on me? Can you please check in with me once a week to make sure that I'm doing this? Does that make sense? I'm going to just say a word or two in Gujarati. Apne ગમે તે તકલીફ આપણી જીવનમાં આવે, આપણી જવાબદારી છે કે આપણા હાથમાં શું છે કે આપણે શું કરી શકીએ. આપણા હાથમાં તાકાત શું છે, આપણી શક્તિ શું છે, આપણી પાસે કયા ગુણ છે, શું જ્ઞાન છે કે એ જ્ઞાન ને એ ગુણથી આપણે આ પરિસ્થિતિનો ઉપાય શોધી શકીએ. So we really need to look at what we can do ourselves. Right, let's move on. Let's look at the 4 pillars for building resilience. Now, these 4 pillars will help to recharge that phone battery, the battery of resilience, or the cup of resilience. First is, as I mentioned before, sleep. Now, we've touched on this before. Everybody knows the importance of good sleep, and I'm not going to belabor this point. Many people, many other presenters on this platform have come and shared this already. But let's just understand that when it comes to sleep, quality and quantity are very important. You yourself will need to decide what works for you in terms of quality, in terms of quantity, but quality is certainly something we shouldn't compromise on. And one handy tip I want to share with you, and I share with my coaching clients, is never borrow from your sleep. So always time shift towards the left, meaning try and sleep before midnight, and don't try to use up your sleep to get more work done, because borrowing from your sleep inevitably leaves you with a deficit in all areas of your life. So wherever possible, get enough sleep and improve the quality. Improving the quality of the sleep is countless ways: reducing blue light, not having computer and devices near you, having a dark environment where you sleep, no noises, temperature regulation, wear adequate clothing or less clothing in order to manage your temperature. And all of those things will contribute to a conducive sleep. There are many other things as well, but getting good quality and quantity sleep is important. Then let's talk about nourishment. Now, when it comes to nourishment, it's two types of nourishment, two types of diet. We're talking about our physical diet, what we consume through here, and we're talking about our sonic diet, what we consume through here and here visually. This is very important. Most people think that nourishment is just about what we eat, but actually stress is increased and also resilience is also improved by regulating not only what we eat, but what we hear and what we see. And I know you know this is true. Everybody knows and has had experiences where they've watched something on TV that they wish they hadn't done, that they spent time watching a TV series or a movie that was a waste of time, or something that really negatively made them feel depressed. I'll tell you what it was for me: EastEnders. I used to watch EastEnders, the TV show, and it was completely depressing. I was always depressed when I watched it. I thought, why am I watching this? What is it doing for me? And so we need to start to become more choosy about what we consume here, through our ears and through our eyes. And so I invite you to look at your diet. We all know that having better food, vegetarian food, vegan food is better for us. That's widely known. Nothing new about that. We all know that these things are very important. A plant-based diet is very conducive. But do your own research and look to see what you can start to introduce more of and drop what's not helping you. So if you know that you're consuming too much sugary stuff, then become conscious that that sugar is contributing to insulin spikes, brain fog, poor cognition, and ultimately weakening your resilience. And therefore, you have more stress showing up in your life. So you see how the connection between what we eat and stress is quite close. Similarly, with what we hear, if we're constantly listening to negative news, and let's face it, most news is negative. If we're hearing the news every day and we're feeling down, well, guess what? We're listening to negative news. We have nobody to blame but ourselves. Nobody is forcing us to watch the daily news. Nobody's forcing us to be on social media 5, 6, 7 hours a day. And therefore, again, it comes to being choosy about what we consume so that we can reduce the amount of stress by consuming less information. Just consuming less information is in itself going to reduce information overload, which reduces overwhelmingness, which will reduce stress, and it will allow our resilience to build up. Does that make sense? So I hope that makes sense. And of course, looking at what I said, consuming through our eyes, what we watch. You know that you'll get one result if you watch, let's face it, 2 different types of results. Imagine what kind of result you get from binge watching Game of Thrones or your favorite TV series, right? TV drama, versus binge watching on the top 10 self-development and spiritual podcasts. Sadhguru, Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, whoever it is that you want to listen to, Ramesh Bayoza. Can you see the huge difference you would have by watching 10 hours of that or 10 hours of these? Just by understanding that, think about how you can change what you listen to and see or watch in order to strengthen your resilience. Okay? All right, let's talk about these other pillars here. Social well-being. Now, of course, we're in lockdown still, and so we can't socialize as much as we want. But what I talk about here is building strong networks, both inside the family unit, inside our house, and around with people around us, over the phone, over the internet. A great idea is to have weekly masterminds. Have a check-in with your friends or family where you come together, and each week a person can come and bring their challenge or their problem to that group. Have a small group of trusted people. Housewives can have their fellow housewives. Gentlemen, you can go and have your fellow gentlemen. youngsters, teenagers, you can have your teenagers, but the purpose of these gatherings online, over Zoom, over conference call, over WhatsApp, remember WhatsApp allows 5 people at one time, is to come together and have an agenda where you can have, let's say 50% banter, chit chat, and 50% people come and bring their serious stuff to the table. Whatever challenge that they've got, they share it in trust, in confidence. And by doing this, you're starting to look and harness the power of social well-being. You're caring for each other. And by sharing something with vulnerability, with authenticity, that we're able to start to find solutions, because other people will be able to see a solution that we might not be able to. Even though we're stuck, somebody else might see something that we can't. So this is social well-being. And then lastly, fitness. When we're talking about fitness, we're not just talking physical fitness, we're talking mental fitness as well. So physical fitness, of course, goes without saying. It's within our circle of control, right? We have the ability to decide whether we want to go out for a walk these days now or not. If we find it boring, then it's the duty is on us to find it, to make it more interesting. If we don't want to walk by ourselves, then maybe we can find a couple of walking companions and do the social distance walking. So we get a companion. Maybe it's going with a work colleague or a family member and saying, let's pick one problem or challenge or goal that we want to focus on, and we'll do a 1-hour walk. For 1 hour, you get your turn to discuss whatever it is you want to discuss. And then the next time round, the next walk, it'll be your turn. You get to talk about what you want for an hour. Do you see what I'm saying? Where you combine something with other people to make it more exciting and interesting, and you can get your fitness done at the same time, as simple as walking. Wear a rucksack if you need more intensity. Walk faster. For you, it could also be physical. And let's talk about mental fitness for a second. Podcasts. I'm a big fan of listening to lectures and podcasts because they're great ways to engage our mind, and we can do them at the same time. I love podcasts because I can get my housework done and I can go be listening and educating myself at the same time. I can go walking and get an hour done and listen to 2 or 3 podcasts, valuable stuff. Maybe you can listen to our podcast, Urban Spirituality. I highly recommend our podcast, the podcast that I started 2 years ago now. We've had nearly 60 episodes and guests from 4 different continents, and wisdom of all aspects of life from these 4 pillars shared with people. And I love listening to that podcast. And I invite you to pick something, whatever it is, and educate your mind, feed it while you're studying or walking. And so what you're doing is you're not only improving your physical fitness, you're building your mental fitness. And these both directly contribute to building our resilience. And the more we build our physical and mental fitness, the less impacted we become by stress. So I hope that makes sense. So moving in and carrying on here, let's now take a pause for a second. And I want you to reflect on how these are showing up for you in your life at the moment. Which of these areas are you utilizing and harnessing at the moment? Give that thought for a second. Really get honest and ask yourself where it is that you're putting your efforts. Could it be that you're putting so much effort in your career or your day job that you're not taking enough time for walking or fitness? Could it be that you're so busy, caught up in worrying and trying to create a future that you have no time for mental fitness? Could it be that you're overly reliant on food? Could that be what's going on? So I want you to just give thought as to what this could be for you. I hope that makes sense. As we do that, I'm just going to keep one eye on the comments to see if anything's coming in. I appreciate your patience. Got a lot of comments coming in at the moment. Let's see if there's anything that needs addressing. Hope that makes sense. As we do that, I'm just going to keep one. Right. I'm just checking the comments to see if there's anything that's come in. I appreciate your patience here. At the moment. Let's see if there's. We've got people tuning in from Toronto, Canada, the USA. Got some wonderful people tuned in. What an honor and a pleasure to have so many different people tuned in at the moment. Thank you so much. Namaste, Jai Sri Krishna. Jai Siya Ram. Negative imprints, very good point. Tanzania, East Africa, Jambo, habari sana. So we got people tuned in from all places. Let's carry on, and let's now move into the last segment of this presentation. And as we do that, let's explore. Let's explore a couple of strategies that we can now use straight off the bat to help us handle this situation better. Okay. So I'm very excited about these because these are all tried out. I'm hoping you can see my screen. I want to make sure you can. So I'm just going to quieten this off. Now, hopefully you can see that again. So let me just flick through. And I want to move on to 3 practical hacks that we can apply to reduce stress and restore focus. And by doing so, we build our resilience. So the first of these follows on from what we talked about, physical movement. It's the 5-minute mover and shaker. I want to invite you, whoever you are and whatever age you are, to take a break from what it is that you're doing most of the time. And many of you, if you're working, to take a break every 90 minutes and do 5 minutes of movement. Now that movement may be any kind of exercise within the house, within your space where you live. It could just be jogging on the spot. It could be press-ups, star jumps. It could be pranayama. It could be dancing. It could be going out for a quick walk in your garden if you have one, or going outside for a walk. It is some sort of movement that you can do to shake your body up. And why this is important is that movement helps to build our ability to release dopamine, release serotonin, and build our metabolism. These 3 chemical reactions within our body help to counteract stress almost instantly. Just doing some physical activity, although it may get us slightly out of breath, and obviously check with your medical practitioner before you engage in a particular type of physical activity. But generally speaking, the physical activity, that little bit of careful exertion, helps to shake off those negative thinking patterns that we get into, or the tiredness or the brain fog of being busy with one thing. What it will do is it will raise our dopamine, serotonin, and metabolism, and therefore it will be powerful antidote to reducing our stress very quickly. Second thing I want to talk about is the JAM principle. The JAM principle is something I love. It stands for just a minute. And what I want to invite you to do is, it looks like this. Close your eyes and focus on your breathing and be mindful or meditate for 1 minute at least 5 times a day. I'll say that again. The JAM principle is taking a break from what you're doing at least 5 times a day for 1 minute to close your eyes and focus on your breathing or some form of meditation. Now I'm going to invite you to try this with me, the JAM principle, and I'm going to do it as a count of 4. So you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. You'll hold for a count of 4. You'll release your breath. You'll breathe out for 4, and then we'll repeat. Okay? So you're going to breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. And hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. And hold, 2, 3, 4. And out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2. All the way in. And hold, 2, 3. All the way out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, deeper, 3, 4. And hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, all the way out, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. Notice the rhythm. Get deeper into it. In, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2. Good. Take a deep breath for me and release. Now notice how that makes you feel. Notice how within just a minute of doing this, how relaxed, how calm you feel. And many, many people, time and time again, people that I speak to, that I run the workshops with, and the people who I coach, they report a certain sense of calmness. It's almost as if the worry that they had has temporarily disappeared. They're not feeling that worry. They don't feel that stress. Because what happens is when we go into this regulated, deep breathing pattern, rhythmic pattern of breathing, it starts to disrupt that stressful thinking state. And it introduces and injects a moment of calm and clarity. And in that calm, clarity, and focus, you're able to start to look at solutions, or step back and look at the situation again, and then look back at your circle of influence and see, could I be stressing over something that I cannot control? In which case, what can I control? Does that make sense? Lastly, it's do one of the 3 M's. Now, this is not 3M as in Scotch 3M, the sellotape. This is my 3 M's. Meditate, mind feed, or music. Meditation, we know. You're all aware of meditation, some form of meditation. If you want to have tips on meditation, feel free to drop me a line, or there are many other wonderful people as well who could help you and guide you with meditation, or feel free to give me a shout. Meditation can be as simple as 5 minutes, or it could be as profound as an hour. And the depths of catharsis and personal evolution that occur are all proportional to the amount of time and frequency and intention that we put into the meditation. But it starts with some. So to reduce stress, build focus, and build resilience, try meditating. Some of the world's greatest executives and leaders swear by meditation. They have made it part of their life. So embrace meditation in some way, 5 or 20 minutes or 15 minutes. Start with some form of meditation. A great form of meditation is mantra chanting. So you may have a mantra that you want to chant. Om Namah Shivaya, Shri Ram, Jai Ram. Om, the Gayatri mantra, or a mantra of your particular faith or religion or background or heritage. Pick a mantra, a phrase that you can repeat again and again and again, so that you start to program your mind to become free from the constant onslaught of the negative thinking. And you create a disruption, just like with the breathing, but with the mantra, where your focus goes, instead of the breathing, it now goes to the mantra, to that sound that you're reciting again and again. And you ride that mantra deeper and deeper. And it has profound effects. We all know this. We've all heard it. So I won't go belabor the point. The second is mind feed. Mind feed is effectively talking about feeding the mind with something powerful. It goes back to what I said earlier, audio. Some sort of lecture, some sort of talk that you can have, some sort of thing that you can watch that will inspire you. So you're breaking the pattern, you're disrupting your state by having something that will help you, something that will help you to shift your state from a negative state to where you are. And then last but not least, you have music. So music is a great stress buster as well. And again, it will build your resilience, especially if you choose and pre-choose the kind of music you want to listen to. So I invite you to choose and create a soundtrack of music, whatever age, whatever genre of music you enjoy, but have some music ready that when you get into a stressful state and you're not sure what to do, play that music. What that music does is, again, it disrupts your current state. It breaks the state that you're in. In NLP, it's called the state break. And as you break the state, what you're doing is you're allowing the mind to shift from a worry focus to a possibility focus, from a state of negative emotions to a temporary state of happiness. And even that temporary state of euphoria or happiness of the music that you love. That's why it's important to pick music that you're familiar with, that you love, and that makes you feel inspired. When you do that, that's when it's going to start having a profound effect on you. That's when it's going to start to reduce your stress quickly, because you've picked music, pre-selected music that has a big impact or that you really cherish very much. Okay, so those are 3 hacks to do to reduce stress and to restore focus and build resilience. Okay, so that leaves us to wrap up with an exercise for all of you. I want you to just take a screenshot of this if you can, and I want you to use this. This is going to be your map. This is going to be your GPS that's going to guide you as you go through this. It's going to be your GPS. You're going to use this in order to ascertain where you are at the moment. And I want you to mark on this where you are at the moment. Where are you from a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being you're completely dissatisfied, to 10 where you're highly satisfied. Where are you for these pillars in your life? And by nourishment, you can include how much TV or media or social media that you're watching. And fitness, you can include your mental fitness. How much are you doing to strengthen your mind through podcasts, brain exercises, as well as the physical stuff? Rate yourself on this. And the goal is not to get to 10 on every single side. The goal is simply to increase the number for each of these from what it currently is. But you can't do that unless you know where you are. So just like we would do a stock take of shopping before we go out to go and buy stuff, we need to be able to chart where we are today to create a baseline of where we are before we can move forward. Does that make sense? So take a moment to screenshot this. I'm going to just add this in Gujarati as well for those who have stayed and who prefer speaking in non-English. આ 4 ચીજ આપણને ધ્યાન રાખવાની છે. આપણી સુવાની ટેવ, આપણી સુવાની રીત, કેટલું આપણે સૂઈએ છે અને કઈ રીતના આપણે સૂઈએ છે, કે આપણી ઊંઘ ક્વોલિટી ઊંઘ છે કે નથી, આપણી ઊંઘ ભાંગે છે કે નહીં, આપણને એ જાણવાનું છે અને એ જાણવાનું છે કે અત્યારે કેવી હાલત છે આપણી ઊંઘની. પછી આપણી ડાયટની હાલત શું છે, આપણો ખોરાક શું છે, આપણે શું ખાઈએ છીએ, શું નથી ખાતા, અને શું આપણને બંધ કરવાનું છે, શું આપણને ઓછું કરવાનું છે અને શું આપણને વધારવાનું છે. That's nourishment. Social well-being. આપણો સંગ શું છે? આપણે ગુજરાતીમાં કહીએ છીએ કે જેવો સંગ એવો રંગ. એટલે આપણે કોની સાથે આપણે કોન્ટેક્ટ રાખીએ? સગાવાલા સાથે આપણે વાત કરીએ છીએ, એ બધુંય બરાબર છે. પણ આપણે ખાલી સગાવાલા સાથે આપણે જો હાહા હીહી ને સમાચાર તબિયત પાણીનું જ પૂછતા હોય અને બીજું ના પૂછતા હોય તો આપણે પૂરો લાભ નથી લેતા. આપણને સગાવાલા અથવા આપણા ફ્રેન્ડ ને વડીલો ફ્રેન્ડ સાથે આપણને એ પણ જાણવું છે કે આપણી હાલત શું છે. સામેવાળાને પૂછવું છે કે એની હાલત શું છે, આપણા મગજમાં શું ચિંતા છે અને એ ચિંતા આપણને બોલવાની છે. એટલે બોલીને શેર કરીને આપણી ચિંતા ઓછી થઈ શકે. અને તદુપરાંત ફિટનેસ, આપણી ફિટનેસ લેવલ શું છે, આપણે કસરત કરીએ જ કે નહીં, આપણે આપણા મગજની કસરત કરીએ જ કે નહીં, એટલે આપણને એમાં ધ્યાન વધારે દેવાનું છે. Okay, sorry for any imperfections in my Gujarati. Let's look at what we want to do with this. I want you to, as I say, rate your score. What is your lowest score? But here's the important thing. Understand why. So ask yourself, what is your lowest score and why? Why is it your lowest? Is it because you hate exercise and therefore you scored a 2? Is it because you love your food too much and therefore you eat terrible food and therefore you're at a 2, but it's because you love it too much? What is it here? Is it because you're too shy, you're withdrawn, you don't want to hang out with people, so your social well-being is very low? Understand what your lowest score is and why. The moment we start to understand our why is the moment we can start to bring awareness and we can start to improve it. Okay? And understand what your highest score is and why. Because if you understand what's working and why, you can start to take the same willpower and techniques that you're using in that area and apply it in the other areas that need help. Make sense? And what can you do to raise that score? We've talked about circles of influence. Revisit the circles of influence. What is it that you can control? What is it that you can influence? Focus on those. Everything outside of that, pay it no mind. It'll come and it'll go. As we say. Look at your network, your classmates, friends, teachers, schools, colleagues, family. Bring them in to help you to be accountable to your levels of work and performance. Get them to be accountable to you. You can be accountable to them. Create some accountability with each other to say, I'm going to reduce my stress over here. And I want to help you to reduce your stress in this area. Let's work together. Let's check in with each other once a week, and let's keep each other honest. Does that make sense? And I want you to then do one addition, as I described. Pick one thing that you're going to do, that you're going to add, either in the physical area, mental area, or behavioral area. Pick one activity or habit or change that you're going to do, that you're going to start to add in. And then pick one habit that you're going to start to give up. I didn't say give up straight away, but you're going to start to realize that this is not helping your stress and you need to go and improve it. So look at what that could be. What could that habit or thought pattern or behavior? It could be a negative thinking habit. It could be a behavior that you're doing that's not conducive to you, right? It could be that you're staying up late at night because you need to just de-stress and it's not helping your sleep. It could be a person that you're hanging around with that you shouldn't probably be hanging around with, and they're not good for you. So you need to reduce your company or association with that person. Or it could be a thought pattern that you're not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not capable of. By just recognizing it, you can start to break its hold on you. Does that make sense? So those are the takeaways. And really that brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope that you found it valuable, and it's almost an hour of a lot of wisdom and knowledge packed in. Here's some ways that you can come and get in touch and stay in touch if you would like to with me, and how we can work together as well. There's the website. Please feel free to reach out, shout out if I can be of any help. stresstosuccess.co. I'm on LinkedIn. Come and say hello. I normally do lives and interviews on LinkedIn on subjects like stress. And in fact, I have a show called Behind the Lens that I run with the head of the Stress Management Association, the International Stress Management Association. We do that twice a week on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Tune in and check out the show. It's 5 minutes of wisdom, real time, twice a week on Facebook and LinkedIn. So feel free to check that out. We always share wisdom. We're on Twitter. The podcast, of course, is Urban Spirituality. Look for my name, Prash, and Urban Spirituality. Check out the podcast. There's episodes from people of different races, religions, cultures, and backgrounds from 4 continents. There's bound to be wisdom that will help you in some way, shape, or form in your life while you walk, while you cook, while you relax. Start listening to podcasts to feed your mind. Okay, and last but not least, I have a gift for all of you. I want to leave you with a powerful gift that I've created over this lockdown period. Over the past 8 weeks, I've been working on mastering and engineering and creating a powerful guided audio meditation in English that helps us to reduce stress, restore calm, and increase immunity and focus based on scientific research using brainwave, cutting-edge brainwave entrainment technology, binaural beats technology, and powerful affirmations, which I've synthesized together into a powerful 21-minute audio, which I normally give to the clients I work with. But I'd like to offer that as a gift for all of you, because I know it will help you if you start using it every day. You can grab it right here at stresstosuccess.co/gift. And I would invite everybody in the Luana community who is tuned in and watch this to try this out, get in touch and let us know. We've started having the most magnificent feedback from people in Australia, the USA, the UK, and now India of how this is working for them. So I'd love to know how it works for you. Grab it, try it out. It's our gift to you. And that brings us to the end. If you have anything else, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But otherwise, I just want to finish by thanking the entire LCNL National Committee and the communities, the local chapters, everybody who's been involved in making this powerful platform available to everybody, and the goodness that it brings day after day, week after week. You are serving the community and people beyond so beautifully and so nobly. And I'm privileged to have been a part of this, and I hope to be continuing to serve and support you in any way that I can. That's it from me. So thank you so much. And I leave it with you, and I will see you again. My Khub Jai Sri Krishna. Namaste, Jai Gurudev, and I'll see you again very soon.